Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell in the upper right-hand corner. Follow me on all forms of social media. Check me out at thatdrummerguy.com and enjoy the following presentation.
Josh, what's going on? It's Corky.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man. Good.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking time to do this interview.
Absolutely.
Well, of course, we're here to talk about everything that's going on in the world of Code Red Riot right now, and it seems like it's been an amazing year for you guys. I mean, being able to do all the shows that you've done so far, being able to release the debut album to critical acclaim, and everything else that's been going on. It's great to see all of this happening in 2018.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasant surprise. I'll put it that way. You know, all you can really do is put your heart and soul into it and hope that people respond. So far, the response has actually been really good.
And with that, for anyone that's checking this out that may not be familiar, how did this whole band come to be?
Well, trying to do the long story short, essentially I was with Otherwise from 2010 to 2015. And I left Otherwise at the end of 2015 and didn't quite know what I was going to do next. And I've always, played a bunch of instruments, and I've always recorded, and I've always had my home studio. So I just started recording some more songs for fun. And after I finished the first handful, I started sending them around to like my old lawyer and record label contacts and that kind of stuff. And I was trying to get my name out there to produce and write and that kind of thing, and start working with some other bands. And everyone that I sent them to was like, dude, you should just start a band and do this thing. So what I was doing for fun turned into a band pretty much overnight, and started doing shows and signed a deal with Century Media, which became Sony Red Music, and then we were off and running from there.
So with that, I mean, obviously with having this great background, not only for instrumentation, but also behind the scenes as well in studio work, how did you know what direction you wanted this band to go in when you first started off?
I didn't really. It's kind of the great part about it is like there was no real agenda. I mean, I write music like Code Red Riot because that's what I like. So I was really like, there was a few other songs that I was recording at the same time that didn't totally fit with the same vibe, but at the same point in time, like I've always done rock music, and like as I was putting this thing together, like that, it's like it's always been rock music with a little bit of grunge because I grew up in Seattle, with some sort of a groove-oriented element because I've played drums for 30 years. So it's just kind of how I write. and I've always liked heavy guitars, and to me, that's just what comes out is exactly what's in my head 90% of the time.
Yeah, and it's great for someone that's a fellow drummer like myself. It's like, I love how drum-centric the songs are throughout this album, whether they're starting it off with like a really cool cymbal intro or, just like amazing drum fills throughout. I mean, it's great to see that drum-centric feel in rock music like this.
Yeah, and the funny part about it is like, even when I'm writing on guitar or writing on bass, I'm thinking about it as a drummer. I've a lot of times, like I've pictured a drum beat in my head, and then I'm translating that drum beat onto a guitar. You know what I mean? So it because everything even when I hear a new song, a lot of times I still hear the drums first.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm the same way too, and I did the same thing with this album. I do the same thing when I'm checking out an album as well. It's just like, it's so ingrained into our mentalities to be able to hear what the drummer is doing, and then everything eventually starts to come around the more that you listen to a song or a band or an album or whatever the case is. Everything else starts to slowly come apart, but the drums always has that great feel to it, and it's great to see that even though you are stepping up to the forefront now, the drums are still that important to you.
Yeah, and I mean, as we've been doing live shows, the irony of it all, I mean, I guess I kind of could have seen this from the beginning too, but like one of the hardest things to do has been finding the right drummer for this band for live shows. it's almost been like Spinal Tap. Like, I think I'm on drummer number 5 now. And I'm with the same guitar player and the same bass player from the beginning. But you know, I end up looking for a guy who literally can poke into my head and grab out part of my brain and translate to that to the drum kit. And it's not easy, both in the sense that, like, you know, each drummer has his own unique style. So I've gone and recorded an album with my particular style on it, and then I'm asking someone to, you know, largely emulate that as we hit the stage. It's very like, you know, what Taylor Hawkins was asked to do, you know, a decade ago or whatever, where it was just like, okay, I can put my flavor on this, but I got to start with what Dave did first and then expand it from there. And it's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, and it's so very important too. I mean, especially when drums are so near and dear to you, you want to make sure that it's going to be replicated in a way that is going to be what you want it to be ever comes into the studio where you have a drummer play the parts instead of yourself. But especially for the live show, making sure that it's what you want it to be and making sure that the songs go the way that you want them to go.
Exactly. And I mean, like, the some of the things with it is like, you know, like I've written these songs, you know, like I was saying, from a drummer perspective, but it's also like there's a lot of drum fills, like the fills themselves are written very specifically, whether they're going with the guitar riff or whether they're going with the vocal, and like the snare is accenting the same rhythm that the vocal is accenting, or, you know, like there's a lot of stuff that's specifically going into these songs to coordinate the drums with the rest of the song. And there's a lot of songs out there that don't do that. But, you know, because of my, like I say, drumming background and songwriting background, it's all there. So, like, you know, for better or worse, those are the things that I end up looking for. Like, hey, man, this accent is on the record for a reason. I need you to be hitting that accent as we go into chorus number 2, you know, or that kind of thing. It's like I say, I know it's not easy for the guys that I'm working with, but when they nail it, it's awesome.
Oh yeah, and that really does show the difference between just a drummer and a musician when you do specifically write out the fills to match what the song is, having those fills have a purpose rather than just showing off what a drummer is capable of behind the kit.
Yeah, exactly. It's like choosing those spots appropriately and hoping for the best. I mean, when I'm tracking the drums, a lot of times I play it differently each time as I'm going through, like, each take, you know? So, like, I might have played 10 different fills going into a certain chorus or you know, going into the bridge or whatever, but when we're going through them, it's like, you know what, that one's the most appropriate. And then half the time I'll have to go back and replay the fill because I'm hearing, once I'm hearing it back in the context of the song, I'm like, actually, you know, I shouldn't be doing this fill, I should be doing this accordingly, because you can hear where it fits. And I mean, it takes time, but, like, the beauty of like, in my home studio in particular, like, my drums are set up there 24/7 with microphones on them. So, like, I just did a demo this week, and I tracked some guitar, then I tracked the drums, then I started doing the vocals, and I went back and redid half the drums, you know what I mean? Because they were still there and set up, and I was like, okay, this is what I need to refine, you know, let me go back and do that. And I mean, to me, I find that really fun because I feel like you're able to really hone in on the drum part the same way you do a guitar solo or whatever. Like, you know, you're not just winging it, you are actually writing the part out when all is said and done.
And what a great thing in 2018 too, to be able to be in that position where you're able to have this studio where you're able to have your drums completely set up, all mic'd up, all ready to record. So, because it is so hard to be able to get that set up, especially to be able to get the right sounds that you want out of the kit and the right space, the right flooring, everything that goes into it. The fact that you're able to have a kit like that, being able to have that all set up amongst all the other instruments and microphones and everything it takes to mix demos and albums, and you can just have that so conveniently now.
I mean, for everybody but your wife. You know, it's funny. It's like I've had to move a few different times down here, and each time it's like, okay, what room am I taking over? Because once I take it over, like that, they're just going to be stuff in there. But yeah, I mean, like, between what's developed over the last, you know, 5 and 10 years in terms of plugins for the computer, has been phenomenal. So like I can record in my bedroom and have it sound like a full-blown studio with all the crazy stuff that's come out, you know, technologically recently. So that's been killer. And then like, I mean, dude, with guitars and bass, like the majority of albums these days are getting recorded direct through amp modelers and stuff. So it's like, you know, you need drums and you need a vocal mic and you need some modelers, and you can turn out a recording that's on the radio.
So, with all of that said, I mean, obviously being able to have all of that convenience, for the most part, being able to record stuff like that, but when you look back at Mask now, how do you feel about the final product?
It's good, man. Like with every record, there's always things you wish you could change. You know, but big picture, it's like, it's funny, like those songs, I have complete versions of them from what I did at my house, and then we went and re-recorded them in their entirety with Sean McGee at his studio. And it's funny, like I'll go back and there's some things about my original demos that I like better, and then there's things that about the record that I like better. You know, it's just a taste thing. Like you know, it's like a different flavor of ice cream, you know, for me. But really, like what I like about the record, you know, as a whole is like, I think Sean was able to refine how the guitars went, and he worked with me on some of the drum parts that, like, even there were parts, you know, like I was saying, that I'll go through and go back and forth and really think that I have the right part, and there was a few times where he was like, well, actually, I think you should do this, and sometimes I was like, yo, man, I already tried that fill, or I already tried that beat, it doesn't work, like, you gotta trust me on this, I know what's going on. And then there are a few times in there where I was like, well, you might be onto something. And the next thing I know, like the drum beats completely turned around and we're doing something completely different. So, you know, that was fun. And then, and honestly, like with the final version, Sean, the guy that I worked with on this record, he trained largely with Kevin and Kane Shurko, who are producers here in Las Vegas that, I mean, they've done all the recent Five Finger Death Punch and Disturbed and Hell Yeah and Papa Roach records, like largely most of the largest selling rock albums over the last few years were all done out of the Churko studio here in Las Vegas, and Sean trained directly with those guys, and a lot of what that translated into performance wise was how he helped me get through the vocal parts, because it's funny, like, you know, the vocal is the most prominent part of a song that people hear, and I'd never really put all that much time into it. I knew what I wanted the lyrics and the melody to be, but like the actual performance and the nuances and the inflections that we do with our voices, like that was all happening and getting molded with Sean's guidance, and that's what I really took out of the final product was turning me from a guy that was just singing to an actual singer.
Yeah, and that's such a great thing. I mean, when you're able to get all those guys that really know what they're doing, I mean, whether it's the rest of your band, whether it's the guys that are helping create the album, produce the album, everything like that. I mean, when you're able to get people who know what they're doing and able to bring a great album into an even greater album, I mean, it really makes for such a rewarding feeling at the end. Yeah,
and it's when you get to work with someone who pulls something out of you that you didn't know was there. And you're like, oh, well, that's, you know, I didn't know I could do that. Which is always great.
and speaking of that, was there like any particular moments like that where you really surprised yourself, especially when it came vocally?
Any surprise moments in particular? You know what? Well, hold on one second. A lot of it was where I learned my voice would mold from a singing voice into a screaming voice, which I now very specifically know how to do that and at what note range that makes sense. A lot of that was refining that, because there were a few songs where I almost changed the key because I thought they were too difficult to sing, and then I realized that the difficulty in singing those songs was kind of what made it cool, and having that strain in the voice was what helped translate the emotion of the song. And then it was like figuring out how to get that out of my voice in a way that didn't shred it along the way. You know, and there's a bunch of spots on the record that are like that, where where the singing is drastically different than what it was on the demo because of how we worked that all out.
Yeah, and that's got to be such a great feeling, too. I mean, the fact that you were able to surprise yourself so much when it came into recording what you did for the album, and now being able to go out there and be able to show off these songs in the live setting, seeing what the live reception is going to be, and then having all of the experience for when the next album comes along and being able to improve that much more.
Exactly.
Hello?
Josh, Corky.
Hey.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries at all.
Right.
But right before that, we're just getting into about the live show and everything that's going into that. I mean, how does it feel now, like, knowing all these songs that you wrote during these times where you didn't really necessarily know where you're going to be going with your musical direction? How does it feel now to be able to go up on stage now, being able to front your own band like this and be able to play in front of the crowds that you do?
It's funny. It's cool. It also, like, half of these songs are, a bulk of these songs weren't totally tested in front of an audience, so we didn't have a lot of ability to refine them to see, what would work in a live setting. So part of the coolest thing is actually taking the time now to change some of them around and figure out where we can stretch them and where we can bring them down and that kind of thing. Because, when I'm recording, I really do like to have the songs be, 3 or 3.5 minutes tops. And live, you can kind of do whatever you want. So really the fun part of putting it all together is like being able to help, sculpt how they are getting performed live and what we're doing there. And it's funny, like there's similar things that you do behind the drum kit, right? Where like, if you're doing, because I play a lot of gigs in Las Vegas in cover bands, right? And we're covering other tunes, and I'm playing with other bands in town that need a drummer for a night, or all that kind of stuff. And the drummer can dictate when things are getting brought down dynamically, or the drummer can purposely speed things up or slows things down, that kind of thing. And you can help direct that as a front man as well, but it's just a completely different dynamic. You know what I mean? Like, you're basically doing like a hand motion up there and hoping that people are seeing it and following along. For me, like I say, with so many years of playing behind the drum kit, the coolest part for me is just having freedom of space up there. Like, I love playing drums, but I also like having a gauge to run around and jump around and be a nut up there. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I can absolutely imagine so, because, depending on the size of your kits, I mean, sometimes you can feel trapped when you're up there on stage, but you always have all these things that you're able to, like, bash around and be able to play the songs that you helped write and play along with. But it's a different change of direction when you're actually fronting the band, when you got people paying attention to you as a front man, singing along with the songs that you wrote the lyrics for, and full on wrote the songs. So it's just like it's cool to be able to see that you're able to adapt to both situations, and you're keeping both situations going.
Yeah, I mean, everyone. I always feel like everyone's capable of anything. They just got to go up there with the confidence and bravado to make the audience believe that they're capable. You know what I mean? Like, there's a certain level of skill involved, and then there's a certain level of just making the audience believe that it can happen, and help, like encouraging them to come with you on that ride. Whether because it ain't gonna be perfect. No live performance is perfect. It's just a matter of having that translate and the experience translate to the audience as best as possible.
Oh yeah, and making sure that you're having fun with it, making sure that, if there is any mistakes that you catch, that you're able to progress upon it and get that stronger with every live performance, and, just continuing to go out, have fun playing the music that you write, and being able to explore all these different territories from a new experience.
One of the hardest parts of being a drummer and being behind the kit is when you do write parts of songs, or when you do write songs, the audience or the general public, and even the industry in a large part, doesn't know that that's ever happening. So like I played drums for 30 years. I played guitar for 20 years off and on, and I've written songs for decades as well. So like with Otherwise, there were songs that I wrote little snippets of, and, you know, maybe I wrote a bridge, or maybe I wrote a chorus, or, you know, and there's other songs where I wrote the entire song. But the audience would never know that because I'm the guy in the back hitting things, and there's somebody else up front singing the song. So, like, the cool part for me with Code Red Riot is, like, it's now I'm writing the songs and people know that I'm writing them. You know? And it's just, you know, like I said, like, this project began with me thinking I was attempting to be a co-writer and a producer with other bands, and then the next thing I know, like, I'm at the front of the band as the primary songwriter. So, you know, it's cool. It's not like I haven't been doing that, but now it's just like a platform in which it's like, here it is, you know?
Oh.
So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so great to be able to see that and being able to spread your musical wings like that. I mean, whether it's something like Code Red Riot where you're able to, you know, front a band and be able to show off your songwriting skills, whether you're playing in Vegas cover bands, being able to still play the kits, or any other musical endeavors that you got going on, either with that producing and songwriting and stuff like that. It's awesome to see, like, someone like yourself being able to explore all these different kinds of things that you can do in music in 2018.
Yeah, I mean, these days the options are limitless because, like, even if you don't know how to play guitar, there's a computer that can translate what you're doing if you take the time to learn how to use MIDI and synthesizers. And if you know, and then, like, if you don't know how to sing, there's ways to record with someone across town or across the world where they don't even have to come to your studio. They can do their, you know, whether it's vocals or drums or whatever, like, people can record wherever and collaborate, you know, through the internet these days. I have a friend that, and it's like, this is something that I would love to do one day. I just haven't had the time to do it, but I have a friend that does drum tracks, like, hire me to do drums on your record, and people send him their song, he records the drums and sends them back, and he's on records from his home studio. Never even meeting the guys in the bands that he's playing the drums with. It's insane, but, like, these days you can do it. It's awesome.
Oh, very much so. And yeah, again, you know, just like, you know, being able to explore all these different areas that you can in music like that. I mean, for the creativity and inspiration, I just imagine it's got to be overflowing for you right now because you are able to show off so many different sides of yourself. I mean, even if you do head into that direction where you're able to start recording drums for bands and musicians that you might not ever meet, but still being able to create new music, I mean, that's such a cool thing.
Yeah, and I mean, with me, I feel like I'm an example of basically doing what you love to do, and then eventually the opportunity has come for me to do it on a larger platform and do it for a living. Because, I mean, for example, like, I learned recording in college, and then I didn't really do it for a while, and then there was a point in time where I finally created a home studio, and I recorded songs on my own with no agenda for 3 years, where I was, you know, I went through the whole process. I'd record the drums, bass, guitar, I'd write the lyrics, you know, and I have this whole stockpile of songs that I recorded for 3 full years with hardly even showing them to anybody. I just did, actually, not even 4 years. It was years. And at the end of that process, where I was just writing because I liked to do it, is when I ended up joining the band Otherwise. And what I didn't realize at the time was all those years that I spent in the garage by myself were leading up to the point where Otherwise would start doing demos in my garage. And one of those first demos was for a song called Soldiers, which is the song that got us signed, got us on the radio, and today is by far the most well-known song by that band. And half the tracks on that song were recorded in my garage on the final product. And, like, that lead vocal that's on that song was recorded in my garage with Adrian singing between my hi-hat and the wall. And, you know, what I'm getting to full circle is, like, I had no idea at the time, but what I was doing for fun for so many years was really honing my craft and getting my skill set up to the point where when it was time to potentially bring the music that I was doing to a greater audience and bring it to the next level, I was prepared for it. But it was because I was willing to do it for fun, because I like to do it.
Yeah, and now again, you know, it's just like, again, I've mentioned it a few times, but it's so great to see that you did do that preparation for so much of what you're able to do now. I mean, whether it's singing, whether it's writing, whether it's playing drums, whether it's producing, songwriting, you know, it's just like you did all that prep work, and while otherwise you were able to do it in other forms, now you're able to do it in any single way that you want to now, and that's just so cool.
Yeah, it's really, really fun, and you know, it's rewarding to finish the product and have a recording, and like that in itself is rewarding. And then it's even more rewarding when people are able to hear it and respond to it, both in like the live setting and from, you know, just the responses I've seen online, whether it's like from YouTube or you know, record reviews or whatever. Like it's been really, really cool to be like, oh man, I'm not the only one that likes this. You know? Other people do too. That's awesome.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think with that, I think it's a fantastic and positive note to end on, you know, just knowing that there's a lot of trials and tribulations that can go, not just in life, but especially in the musical endeavors that can go in life. But, you know, just seeing that the path that you've been able to do and now being able to forge ahead in so many different areas when it comes to music, it's very inspiring to see that. I mean, whether it's what you're doing with Code Red Riot, whether it's being able to play at home in all these different great cover bands, whether it's being able to do songwriting credits and producing and stuff like that. I mean, it's so very inspiring to be able to see that you're able to do all of that, and I can't appreciate enough you taking the time to be able to talk to me about everything they got going on.
Absolutely, man. It's all good. I mean, I honestly have like one more example of that where, like, I mean, I moved to Las Vegas in 2001 when I got the gig playing drums with Blue Man Group. And I didn't even really know what Blue Man Group was at the time. Like, I literally needed a job, and I saw an ad in the paper that they were hiring drummers, and the drummers and guitar players, whatever. And I was like, well, you know, I've played drums for a while, and I think I'm okay, and I don't have a job, so I guess I'll go stand in line and see what happens. And you know, I ended up getting hired for Blue Man Group with Tim Alexander from Primus, who I learned to play drums to, you know, and it was like this total just weird, like surreal mind warp of like, how am I getting hired for a job with a guy that I learned to play drums to? But it all came down to, again, I spent years and years and years practicing on my own, playing with tons of bands, learning different styles of music behind the kit. And when it came time for the right gig, I was standing in the right line at the right place, and I was ready, even if I didn't know that I was ready, you know? So it's like I have been working as a musician for a lot of years now, but it's been a product of years of doing it just for fun and just because I liked it and just because I wanted to get better. And then when the opportunity came, I was ready to do it.
Yeah, and that really shows the power of like showing that you're capable of doing what you want to do as long as you put enough power and tenacity and drive into what you're doing. I mean, whether it's playing for a project that you weren't even really familiar with and being able to realize that it turned out to be someone that you learned how to play drums because of with Tim Alexander, and you know, being able to forge your own path now in so many different musical outlets. I mean, as long as you have that tenacity to be able to push yourself further, you can do what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. And it seems like so many people focus on, you know, needing to look successful or feel successful in what they're doing or feel important or however you want to describe it in terms of like their success. But for me, the biggest thing is like being willing to and able to put the time in when there is no success even on the horizon. It's like you got to do it because you love it first, and then when the time is right for the bigger stuff to happen. Because without doing it because you love it, it's not going to happen down the road regardless. You know, it's got to come it's got to come from what drives your passion first, and then let everything else come accordingly.
Absolutely. And for your path, I mean, it's so great to be able to see that again, I mean, whether it's talking about Code Red Riot, whether it's talking about your drumming that you're still doing to this day, whether it's any of the other musical stuff that you're a part of. I mean, once again, I can't say it enough. I mean, it is very inspiring to see everything that you're able to accomplish just by having that self-positivity and that drive to push yourself forward and to have fun with it. And it was great to be able to talk to you about everything that you got going on. I mean, I learned so much about everything that's going on, and it's very inspiring, once again, to see everything that you've been able to accomplish.
Thanks so much, man. Yeah, it's been cool and rewarding, and like it's just like with everything, plugging away and working hard and hoping for the best and having fun through the process.
Oh, absolutely. So, with that said, again, thank you very much for taking the time to be able to do this. Is there anything else you'd like to mention that I hadn't brought up yet?
I mean, I for me, like with drumming, I just want to say thank you to some of the companies that have helped me along the way, and those have been Vic Firth drumsticks, Sabian cymbals, and D-Drum drums, and Tama drums. All those companies have worked with me for years before any of the success even happened that I've had now. So they've all been super great to work with, and I still work with them to this day. And then everything else is we have a video coming out. I don't know when this is actually going to print or when you're putting out this interview, but we have a video coming out next week for a song called Slide that I'm really excited about. It was essentially the last song written for the record while we were in the studio, written while everyone else went to dinner. While we were on dinner break, I came back with this song going, I think this one's pretty good. And it'll essentially be the second single off the record, and we're really excited to get it out there. It's just a really cool song, and to me it brings back a lot of like I say, I grew up in Seattle, and it's got a little bit of a Seattle vibe to it that I dig. And I'm excited for people to see the video and get more exposed to the song.